I have my own thoughts, but we don't have to come to a consensus. We can each, of course, have our own. But
Yeah,
Max wanted to say
something.
I felt like the theme was everybody had their own way of getting answers. Mark went his way to get answers. Gerard went his way. Nia spied and tried the thief way, and Sam like, I don't need answers. I just need this. It was different ways of having an important mission, a little important mission, and sometimes something else got in the way. For Nia, it was the scientific, the scientific way. For Ola, it was more with the connection with his sister and everything. And Mark was like he didn't want to hurt anybody, so I felt Mark became more and more he needs to make up for the mistakes he's done, and it was his own inner conflict.
What do others think? I'm curious.
Do you know what, Max? You never stole the thing, and you called her a thief.
She wasn't a thief, but she sneaked. The first thing she did was sneak into a base, and she had her shady ways.
That's true.
Yeah.
I think,
guys, this is just a workplace. Calm down.
I think this. What you're and what you're saying here, that we have basically the same, because I really, what you said, Max, was that we were trying to pursue some kind of objective truth, and that resulted in a kind of an anticlimax, and we had to deal with that in different ways, as you said, in different. So it was like about finding answers, basically, and coping with disappointment.
I really like, though, how we all got it to, go together. We all had our own thing in the beginning, and I was wondering, I wonder how this is going to turn out and make it work. But we got it to work, and we got it to, that it was the same thing eventually, even though in the beginning it seemed like it was totally different things.
Yeah.
So I really appreciated that.
I was saying while you were waiting on that, for me it was I'm building upon what Max said. It was about trying to find answers and coping with disappointment, and the interesting thing here is that this is where my question comes in. That theme, did you direct that also?
No. Only insofar as that certain questions that could be asked were going to have answers that were always consistent with the fact that this is just a workplace. Workplaces are full of bullshit.
Yeah.
And they run themselves. There isn't like a boss. I mean, people call themselves CEOs and things like that, but that's crap. We all know that it's just they're just the royalty. They're doing nothing. We know that, and we also know that strange conspiracies and strange politics and extreme actions occur throughout the web work of any workplace, and so. In terms of the content of what you could discover, I knew what I was going to, what the content would be like, but that doesn't necessarily mean that I knew how the conflicts would come out, because the resolution set the theme almost more than the content, right? What do we succeed at? What do we fail at? And the cards played games with us in this. The way the cards worked out is that relationships tended to work out well. Investigations into information tended to work out well, but they always just ran you. Either they failed or they ran you into nothing because there was nothing to find. Or also, especially attempts to become more important, to take power, failed badly, right? And so the cards did that stuff. I didn't direct that. I was going to say that my thematic take is extremely, jeez, my kids are really being horrible. They are screaming. Oh man.
They're being kids.
Well, yeah, but I'm working, and they're supposed to not do this. Let me last time, I promise.
No,
Go ahead.
don't make any promises.
Yeah.
But
I think what was brilliant was, I don't remember whose idea it was, but put it on a ship, basically. Put it on a workplace where you can't get away for months in a row. It made it much easier for me because I've worked at such a place. Once was enough.
I
And
think it was my
it makes
suggestion.
things pretty special. It makes you really think about what is important and what am I going to fight in this place, because the price for any fights can be pretty high. You can't get away there.
Yeah.
There's space around you or water or whatever. So you better arrange with the things until you can get off.
I think that it's, I mean, and most of the sci-fi stories that we have is from the totally other side of it's from the command point of view.
Yeah. Well,
I made
like
a couple
that a
of
lot.
things. Yeah.
You see, I'm sorry. I did.
I just want to kind of conclude the things about theme, because what we kind of have some kind of consensus here is that the theme emerged from both the outcomes and Ron's backstory and our characters. It's
absolutely, it's completely synergistic among those things. Yeah. But let's not forget the fourth element, which is our attention to each other, which the game system encourages.
Yeah.
And I was going to say, back to the content and theme, is I also felt like I should always go back to what someone else said when we were doing the initial setup. So I talked about what Sandra said, and then it's of course what Ola said in the beginning, which is that this is a, below decks, working hard, task oriented. Your job isn't what you want, your job is what they pay you to do. And I said, all right, let's look at the place. So let's look at the situation always from that point of view. And I have to admit that I have a very, very unromantic view of the paid workplace, right? And everything that I said just drew upon my own discontents, my own, even and that was interesting, because sometimes a person would come in, and I didn't want to make anyone a villain. You see, I didn't want to make any person at all like the evil, the heart of the corruption. That's too easy. That's too easy, that one person is the source of all the trouble, or that there's this one conspiracy or this one thing that's going to, that corrupts this otherwise fine situation. The whole situation is not fine. It's just.
I think you did that very good with Gregory.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like he was like, I'm this religious person and I'm going to try to pursue this, and he didn't have all the good ways and everything. And in the end, it's like he's like a normal person and didn't give a fuck.
Yeah. Then
I'm also, writing down.
Go ahead.
Yeah, but because what we are actually discussing now is what was pre-planned, what was decided, and what emerged. And it's very obvious to me that some things must.
You're talking
emerge.
About the content, right? The actual things.
Yeah, content. I mean.
Helma, before I talk about that, what were you going to say?
I actually wanted to get back to the structure of the game a little bit.
but I can wait.
No, actually, that's relevant to what Ola is saying.
Because what I was wondering, or what I would like to start with, is just asking you and Ola. Both of you have played this game more than once, right?
Mm-hmm.
What I was wondering about was how the length of our play, the fact that everybody usually just got one scene, has influenced,
It
if
does.
at all, has influenced the content, because that's something I've thought about a lot.
Yeah, it is
especially
actually quite
during the
important.
last 3 episodes.
Yeah, in my experience, as I talked about with Anthony recently, playing by screen is much easier than I expected in terms of having real content with people. I'll wait for how much. Right. Sorry. Okay, so playing by screen for me is a lot easier than I expected 3 years ago in terms of actually being able to connect with everybody and all of us connecting with each other. I was afraid that wouldn't happen, but it does. However, cognitively, it takes it's obviously much more work. You can see I wear out after 2 hours. I am fried. My brain is gone and I forget the rules. I forget everything. Right. And that happens really consistently in screenplay at about 2 hours exactly. Whereas Primetime Adventures was written and developed completely in live play. Nobody played by screens in 2004. So therefore, 4 hours of play was was a typical episode. And so so the budget, if you think about playing for 4 hours, where you would have at least 2 chances for a scene per person. And then you think about the budget, and you can see that the producer is probably running out of budget, or will have 2 or 3 at a time for a while. And so the end of an episode actually favors the players. And if they are nice about fan mail, then they are usually cooking pretty nicely, right, with fan mail. And so therefore, it seems to me as though it does have a big impact. But I can't say whether I think it's bad or good, or maybe it's just a feature. Yeah, it's kind of hard to say.
That taps into one of my questions, because I was actually I written that down, and it was about how, I mean, you don't plan ahead. I know that you don't have a lot of things, because you
can't have events planned ahead. No, you can't have relationships planned ahead. They are going to change. Right.
So when you determine how much of the budget you take, is that just a gut feeling? Or
well, the way I look at it is that I decide for a given episode whether I am going to go big at the beginning or not. I mean, or rather, before I played this particular game, when I was talking about playing Primetime Adventures, which much longer sessions, then it made a difference to choose whether you would start big or start small. Because you either started big and then you drained away toward the end, or you just held off and had a lot of the producer was not very successful most of the time, and then you had a lot for things toward the end. But so it's structural. You can choose. Those were the only 2 real options. You can't plan for what conflicts are coming. You can just think of early in the session versus late in the session and how you are going to do that. But in this situation, it took me 1 or 2 episodes to realize, I think it was the pilot and the first episode, when I was thinking in those terms, and then I realized, wait a minute, with just 2 hours, I just have to go big all the time. I'm just going to throw 5 cards in from the beginning all the time. Doesn't matter whether I think it's an easy conflict, a hard conflict. Never mind any of that. You guys are just going to get hit with 5 cards until I can't do it anymore. And
I
that's going
actually
to happen.
appreciated you putting that pressure because I was up to a lot of things.
Oh yeah, I know. I mean,
So,
we couldn't let you
I,
get away with everything. That's for sure.
I really appreciate that
Yeah,
because
yeah.
it's no fun if it's too easy.
Yeah. Oh, I agree. Yeah. So back to the content question, because I think that's related. I in playing this game, I learned something long ago, and it was that there are actually three kinds of content. I don't like to improvise content in such a way that it solves problems or creates problems out of nowhere, right? Because that's me controlling the story. I don't like to do that kind of improvisation. So I said, what we have to do is say, what are things that we absolutely know that will allow themselves to be more detailed as you get good ideas about them? So you don't change the prepared content, but you can come up with better things about them. And one of my examples of that was just actually, it was a visual thing of how we played, about how we talked about how a lot of scenes were assumed to start outside the ship. And since you are seeing different angles at different parts of the ship to begin scenes, you really got an image that this thing was just this massive object with all of these different modules and levels and things like that. And so with that in mind, it's a good I didn't come up with that to begin play. I developed it during play, but it, instead of feeling like developing, it felt like realizing something. So in a way, it's the same thing with the two bars, right? We got to look at the bar with Kara and Mark and Sam, and then we went up a level and we were in the bar with the two Russians and Mila and Gerard. Now, I didn't make up those bars. In fact, it was Helma who said, I want to be at a bar. There must be one, right? And so, or a place to just go drink socially. There's got to be one around here. And so, by definition, I suppose you could say I improvised that. But don't forget, I had set up in my mind the culture of that part of the ship. So instead of just improvising the bar to be like something to serve the story in some contrived way, I said, all right, what if I had been so intelligent as to make up the bar already? Which I wasn't, but let's say I did. What would it look like? So in a way, it's just taking what you already know and making more of it or looking at it more closely. It's not quite the same thing as making stuff up as you go, out of nothing.
Yeah.